if we zoom out at the market as a whole, go-to-market teams are understanding that buyers are hard to reach right now. When the market was good, a lot of pipeline teams were more pipeline collectors than pipeline creators.
Welcome to Revenue Insights. Every week, we'll be joined by revenue leaders from some of the most successful and highest growing companies. Together, we explore how they built their revenue teams, the journeys that they've been on, and the lessons they have learned along the way. Revenue Insights is brought to you by Ebsta. We're a revenue intelligence platform designed to help revenue teams to build more pipeline, close more deals, and retain more customers.
Hello, everybody, and once again, welcome to today's episode of the Revenue Insights podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to have been joined by Joe McNeill, the Chief Revenue Officer at Influ2. Joe brings a wealth of experience as a B2B technology sales leader, known for his remarkable track record of scaling revenue and driving growth. At Influ2, Joe is leading the charge in personal-based advertising, revolutionizing how businesses connect with key decision makers. His past roles at SiteImprove and Proto Labs and other tech firms highlight his experience in building high-performance cultures and achieving significant business milestones. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be here, guy.
So, Joe, you've achieved an impressive amount of growth at several different organizations, including some remarkable increase in revenue at SiteImprove. Perhaps you could start by sharing what initially drew you to a career in B2B technology sales and how your approach to that ecosystem has evolved over time.
If I went back to the start, I have the fundamental sales leader degree. I have a degree in landscape architecture. Actually, while I was in school, I realized that I was very poor at designing and drawing spaces, but every project was a group project and they needed a presenter and no one ever wanted to present. So I was always the presenter of other people's work, which somehow led itself into a sales career. I started in recruiting. My first year in sales, I hated it. I tried to get out. I tried to do something else, but I stuck with it. And as I sort of started to improve and get a little better at it, I started to enjoy it more. I started to sort of like it more. I started to see a career path there. I moved into a firm called Proto Labs. It was a technology-aided manufacturing company. It was kind of by luck. They were in my territory that I was sort of selling recruiting services into, and they offered me a job there. And I started as an enterprise AE, moved into my first leadership role there. I think we were around 60 million in revenue. And then I basically took over the entire new logo team there, sort of acquiring new customers. We IPO'd, was very successful. It was fun. I think at about 250 million, it's a long time ago, in revenue. And then it felt like a good time to move on to something new. And SiteImprove came knocking at that point. They're a Danish MarTech firm. They were about 8 million in revenue globally and started there. I think we had about 18 employees in the US, maybe 18 to 30 employees in the US, about $4 million in the US. Was with them for about 7 years. We scaled up to 100 million and then it was acquired by PE. And that's when I connected with Influ2. Proto Labs was almost entirely inbound. SiteImprove was almost entirely outbound. And then Influ2 really resonated with me because as we were scaling the pipeline, I firmly believe that the hardest part about scaling a company is scaling the pipeline engine. It's like being able to scale your pipeline and maintain your efficiency metrics and your unit economics while you're doing that. And we did it almost entirely through outbound at SiteImprove, through somewhat brute force and strategy. And when I was looking at where to go next, I was looking at Influ2's product, and it really spoke to me in terms of how it could help improve efficiency for basically commercial teams, not outbound, not just inbound, but both.
Yeah, because I started to have a closer look at Influ2, and there's a lot of talk about person-based advertising strategy. So perhaps you can share what that means for our audience.
Yeah, I think if we zoom out at the market as a whole, go-to-market teams are understanding that buyers are hard to reach right now, just in general. I think when the market was good, a lot of pipeline teams were more pipeline collectors than pipeline creators. And a lot of, with overflowing budgets, everybody was focused on doing more. And then sort of more pushed into this environment where you have to create pipeline. It's not a buyer's market right now. There's not a lot of buyers out there. And I think everybody's understanding that more isn't the answer, but it's hard not to just do more when you're behind in pipeline. So it's kind of like a death spiral. So where the market is going is it's really intentionality wins. Who's in our specific ICP? Who are our buyers and how do we speak to them in a way that resonates? Because when we're doing outbound at SiteImprove, the way to differentiate was personalization. Like, hey, I want to write Guy an email that proves to him that I'm a human targeting him, that I'm personalizing it. For better or worse, AI has sort of helped automate personalization in a way where that doesn't really catch anyone's eye now. So what works now is humanization, like proving you're a human that can add value to a conversation. Not like, hey, I want to pitch my product, but like, hey, I talked to a lot of folks in your industry that are struggling with the things that you're struggling with. And let's talk through how they're solving it, whether it's with us or not. And maybe there's something there. And I think getting that message to people is hard right now because they're oversaturated with messages. And I think looking at how can commercial teams align, get in front of people in a way that's differentiated, and how can marketing and sales work together to do that? And that's kind of where our name buyer ads come in, where it's like we target specific people with specific messages, and then we push the engagement back to the contact record so that sales can act on it. And there's really two important facets to that, where sales can react to the engagement, but then marketing can prove the engagement, what the engagement is doing to the conversion rates. And what we see is about a 2x conversion rate when folks engage with our ads next to a sales process.
That makes a lot of sense. So most of my audience will know that we create the B2B benchmark report in January, which we launched. And then we saw such change in the market. We actually did a half-on update in July, which looked at the first 6 months of the year. And what was astounding was the volume of leads generated in the first 6 months of the year had grown by 25% in 2024. So we saw a massive increase in marketing spend because I think most businesses were missing target in 2023. And so they needed to do something about it. So what we could do is spend a lot of money and time and energy training our sales team on how to be a lot more consultative, how to deal with objections correctly, and how to bring in a much more consistent approach to the leads that they do generate. Or we can do what we've done 100 times before, which is let's just spend a load more money on marketing, get rid of all the lower performing sales reps, hire a load more, probably from other businesses that also got rid of their low performing sales reps, and just assume that it'll all be fine. When in fact, what we can see from the data is that while the volume of leads coming into businesses has increased by 25%, so there's a lot more noise, the number of opportunities that now match ICP hasn't changed. And so the percentage of opportunities that match ICP has actually dropped. So now our sales team are busier than ever before trying to weed through all of these leads to try and work out which ones are actually ICP. And the ICP leads are harder to find and aren't being worked correctly. And so we're not actually taking advantage of the leads that we do generate that actually match the ICP criteria. So I think we're saying the same thing, which is we need to be trialing the right quality of leads and get the team working ICP opportunities a lot rather than just anything that comes across their desk.
Yeah, this sounds like doom and gloom, what we're saying right now, but I view it a little differently. I kind of like the market where it is right now because a couple of years past when budgets were overflowing, winner was kind of the company with the biggest war chest. We're now the winners are the executors. Like when things get hard, because it's doable, like companies are being successful out there, but it's not easy. And there's no hack or shortcut or like, hey, I'm going to do this one thing, buy this one thing, and it's going to fix everything. It's all about excellence and execution right now. So for the operators out there that are willing to put in the work and execute, those are the winners right now. That's how it should be. So if you're listening to this and thinking, man, I hear every day what doesn't work. Not a lot of people are saying what does work. What works is doing the hard work and really focusing on how do we refine our message? How do we iterate? How do we just claw for that inch of improvement every day and really focus on process and excellence in our execution?
I absolutely buy into that. I think we built a whole business model around this principle that we now, one of our brand guarantees is that we can increase quota attainment across the reps. And we absolutely, one of our principles is the idea that all reps can be top performers if we give them the right training, the right support. And by really getting under the skin of what good looks like at every stage of the sales cycle, you're in a better place where you can actually just bring the B and C players along with you. But I want to get back to, just for our audience to really understand this idea around person-based advertising. Can you maybe share a specific example where it's had a significant impact on clients' pipeline and conversion rates? Maybe there's a story you might be able to tell us.
Yeah, I can do a few of those. I think advertising has always been one of those niche things that we spend a lot of money on because we have to, but CFOs hate it because there's the old John Wanamaker quote of like, half my ad budget is wasted. I just don't know what half. And the sales team has no idea what's happening. It's a black box. And how traditional advertising works is you can target accounts. Sometimes you can even target personas, but engagement is just sort of farmed at the account level unless someone raises their hand and fills out a form. So that's kind of like the idea of MQLs. Also, advertising is typically driven through other databases. So you're like pulling LinkedIn, you're pulling Facebook, you're pulling these other databases. How we work is we connect with CRM. your CRM, and guy, you guys sell to sales teams, CROs, CEOs, you would create campaigns for each persona. So it even could be industry. So I want all CROs in the B2B tech industry. And then you pull the 400, 250 specific CROs within that industry by name into that. And we would target them with ads based off of where they live in your sales force. So if they're a suspect, they've never heard of you guys, they're getting one ad. If they're in a sales process, they're getting a different ad. And then we push that engagement back to the contact level, and it's basically contact level intent, where someone can see impression loads, they can see clicks, and they can see what they've looked at. So they know how to approach them in a relevant way. And then marketing can just simply look at the audience that has engaged with ads versus the one that didn't, and look at what is the conversion funnel through that, and measure the conversion rate differences. So really, a lot of our business is like, hey, they're coming to us, they're like, we have an outbound team, we have an inbound team, and we just want to be more efficient and build synergy with this motion that we're doing. So like, how do we do this in a way that matters? And really, when I had SDRs at Site Improve, one of the hardest things was trying to be more prescriptive in who they pick to put into a sequence. Because like, I love SDRs, or SDRs, so many of them moved into director and executive level positions, but when they're SDRs, they're the person on the commercial team with the least amount of experience, typically. And at Site Improve, they were in charge of 95% of our pipeline. And it's like, we would give them territories, but who they put into a sequence was at sort of their whim. So it's like we had the people with the least amount of experience deciding who we were going to basically book business with. And so with us, your commercial leadership can decide who are the specific people that go into these ad funnels. And the SDR team basically just picks the people who have the highest level of engagement, who are the warmest cold leads to put into a sequence. And then they flow through, and it just increases efficiency and conversion rates throughout the funnel. So we have a bunch of case studies on our website, a bunch of different companies that we've worked with that have shown like, hey, we've done 4x conversion rates. We've done 6x conversion rates with the folks that engage with our ads, and it generated XYZ amount of revenue. So really for the marketing leadership, it's being able to prove the impact they're having on revenue. It's being able to impact how they support people throughout the entire bow tie funnel, instead of just like, hey, we're creating some MQLs, we hope you like them.
And I suppose one of the things I've been thinking a lot about for more complex sales cycles, which might be maybe 3 or 6 months long, is that you may want to be engaging with a different set of personas at later stages in the sales cycles. Are you finding customers using that technology, not just top of the funnel, but actually thinking about, right, at the next stage, we're going to have to engage, for example, with the CFO. We want to start warming them up now using marketing and this targeting approach. Or is it really just top of the funnel?
No. It's through the entire funnel. So yes, I mean, we all know that multi-threading is one of the biggest drivers of conversion rates of any of the things we can do for open opportunities. But for a lot of companies, it's entirely on the AE. Okay, multi-thread this up. They don't get a ton of support. Also, like we've seen Gartner's B2B buyer journey, it's crazy, right? It's a convoluted web. And not every buyer within the buying group is at the same point. Some are earlier, some are later. And so this idea that we're doing like an account-focused motion, accounts don't buy, people buy, groups of people buy, right? And if you can target each persona within the buying group with persona relevant messaging, but then also feed that back to the AE. So they see like, hey, the CFO is looking at our stuff right now. Now's a good time to reach out and introduce myself to him or her with some relevant messaging to what they've been consuming. It's very helpful. And even beyond that, we help customers drive upsells and expansions because we can target specific groups within the account with specific messaging relevant to where they are in the journey. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is just being able to focus on it through the entire revenue lifecycle.
It's interesting. So when we started in business, we weren't a revenue intelligence platform. We started business with what we now call our relationship intelligence technology. And in essence, all it was the problem we set out to address originally was to fix the dirty data in Salesforce. So we built what we now call an AI bot, but it goes through the historical traffic in the mailboxes, the calendars, the phone systems, and it fixes all of the opportunity records that have closed won and lost in the past. Because when we look at the data, we might find an opportunity that might have closed won or lost, but it may only have one contact associated to it and 3 emails that took place. But actually, when we look back at the activity, we can see that the buying committee was 9 stakeholders, and we actually interacted 250 times to get that outcome that we were aiming for. So by going back and fixing the data, we can then build the benchmarks. And that kind of led us into this area of what we now call revenue intelligence. But again, what we are able to do when we onboard customers is build them a journey for each of their products or markets as to what does the ideal buying committee look like at different stages of the sales cycle? Which personas should we be engaging with at stage 2 or stage 3? What are the gates and triggers to lead discovery to move into the next step, for example? And then who do we need to start warming up for the next stage of the sales cycle? So by fixing that data, we found ourselves in a place where we could do that benchmarking. And one of the things that we've been thinking a lot about is how can marketing help do more of the work in warming up the next personas we need to be engaging with in kind of complex, longer sales cycles? Because we know that relationships still drive revenue in B2B sales, even in 2024. And so it's fascinating to hear how you're able to use the technology to actually target the right personas at the right time.
Yeah, and warming up is an interesting word because warming up to some folks is like, oh, we're going to send them 300 emails over the next 2 months. Warming up to me is giving them a positive view of your brand and your messaging. It's kind of like your benchmark reporting. If you see a CRO downloads that and spends time reading it, that's warming up because you're providing value to them. Warming up isn't like, hey, we're going to connect with them and pound them with 5-paragraph DMs in LinkedIn. It's relevant info that provides value to them.
Absolutely. So look, when I was doing the research before today's session, the stats on your time at SiteImprove was really notable. From what I can tell, you helped grow the portfolio from just over 8 million to 100 million. Is that right? And if it is, what strategies did you use to achieve such rapid growth while you were there to ensure that scalability?
Yeah, so 8 million to 100 million was the company revenue. I was in charge of the North American team and the US team, and we were about 70% of that number. So whatever that math is, 5 million to 70 million. I would say, first of all, we had great people, top to bottom. And I think that that's an important thing to know is you can have the greatest strategy in the world. If you don't have good people driving that strategy, you're in trouble. So good people cure a lot. So that was one thing, was hiring good people, promoting those people, and retaining those people. The next piece was really like not being afraid to make a mistake. It's, hey, let's try some things. Let's do this. Some of it's going to work, some of it's going to not. And let's double down on the stuff that's working and stop doing the stuff that's not working. But like really driving that. Our CEO at Protolabs way back when, Brad Cleveland, he always said that he wanted to drive a culture that was a collaborative meritocracy. And I have stolen that from him and taken it ever since. But that's really what I was looking to achieve in the sense that it's like, hey, we want a flat org chart. Everybody says that, but we do. And what I mean by a collaborative meritocracy is we all want to win. We don't care who had the idea, who was right, who was wrong. And if you're not failing, if you're not making mistakes, you're not doing enough. And really, there's no idea too small that we shouldn't explore. Now, if something's only going to give you 0.1% increase and it takes a ton of time to do, don't do that. But really, as I mentioned before, growth is the sum of a lot of little initiatives, ones that aren't sexy, that really improve over time and have sort of, it's like the difference between winning the lottery or investing smartly. And to me, building a successful business is that investing smartly. There's not a ton sexy about it, but you're always tinkering with these initiatives and you're focusing on it. The hardest thing as a leader, I think at times is, you get in front of your people and you say, hey, I have this idea. It's going to work for all these reasons. It's going to be hard for all of us to do, but we're going to do it and it's going to be awesome. And then 4 months later, get in front of them and be like, hey, this didn't work. But I think if you can get in front of them and say, this didn't work, this is why it didn't work, and this is what we're going to do about it, people respect that. If you're always wrong, I think they'll lose faith in you. But at times, like focusing on, hey, how are we pushing forward? To me, it's really creating that culture where everyone feels they're a piece of it, responsible for it, and they're not afraid to make mistakes. They're getting in front of team meetings and saying, hey, I screwed this up today. Don't try this one. It doesn't work. And they're collaborating. And people aren't worried about the ego of, I was right. I had this idea. It's like, at some point, all the ideas turn into shared ideas because we put them out into the sort of brainstorm. And then everybody sort of iterates them together. And then it's kind of all of our idea instead of any one idea. So for me, it's really looking at what works, never saying like, hey, this is a sacred cow, this works, we don't change it. The market changes, you need to change with it. And there's no idea that you shouldn't be able to scrutinize, because if the idea can't survive scrutiny, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. So like, hey, this thing that we love, that we've been doing, that's worked great for us, it doesn't seem like it's working anymore. Let's talk through that. And really, let's just always focus on how we get these little improvements and push forward.
That makes a lot of sense. I wonder if there's any specific key challenges that come to mind that you faced while you were scaling at that pace, and kind of how did you overcome them when you came across them?
There's a lot. If you ask me, I think if we sat down and said like, talk through the awesome stuff you did, it might take a half hour. And you said, let's talk through all the stuff you screwed up. It might take 8 hours. But I think there was a few, we were verticalized and we were pushing forward in new verticals. I know one big challenge was we moved into a school district vertical and we were selling web accessibility software, and there was Americans with Disabilities Act was really driving school districts to have to acquire ways to make their web properties more accessible. And so we sort of started to see some success there. And we went from 0 to 5 million in that portfolio in like 18 months. The problem was we didn't really build a great moat, and we were just sort of pounding away at that. And we had like a competitor come along that basically copied everything that we did, but was cheaper. And within like school districts, they're not a business, and sometimes they have to go with the cheaper software. And we went from 0 to 5 million right back down to 3 million. It became this volatile business, but this competition cropped up that maybe we weren't super prepared for, but it made us better. It was very annoying at the time, but it made us better. It made us focus on like, hey, how do we do this in a way? How do we build relationships in a way? How do we price in a way that we build a moat? And I think as you grow, like our team would get really frustrated. Like they're just copying us, their website's copying us, their product's copying us. And it's like, that should be flattering. We've gotten to the point where someone wants to copy us. That's amazing. And yes, it was frustrating, but it really made us double down and be better. And there was room for both of us. The market was big. There was room for both of us. And I think that was something that we adjusted to and we handled pretty well as we went.
Very good. Well, I'd love to spend more time diving into that. But I know you also talk a lot about employee empowerment, but I'm wondering how you balance that with this need for kind of accountability in this high performing environment. So I'm all for trying to empower the team, but at the same time, we've got to drive forward. We've got to get the performance and get everyone running in the same direction. So how do you see those things kind of competing, or are they complementary?
I think it depends on what you highlight. A lot of startups, well, most companies in general, are idea rich and execution poor. So it's like, let's not focus on who has the sexiest ideas. Let's focus on who gets the most done, who moves the ball forward. What do you have to show for your efforts, really? And that's going to be 3 steps forward, 2 steps back at times. But the people that are executors and are putting it in motion are the ones that we're really focused on highlighting. And I think that people catch on to that. And it's also who's lifting the team instead of being a lone wolf. Like, are you making the people around you better? Are you focused on supporting folks? I've always said it's such a cliche, and I think like anything, it can be weaponized the wrong way. But if you want to be in leadership, you want to be to a point where everybody views you as a leader before you have the title. If Guy, the enterprise sales rep, gets promoted to Guy, the sales manager, all of the peers are like, about time, makes sense. Not like, what the heck? So I think that that's the environment you want to create, is that we're focused on execution and we're focused on teamwork. And I always said we had a jerk-free environment or an a-hole-free environment, right? At Bob's, Robert Sutton has a book about that, the no a-hole rule. And I think people say that, but you have to live it. Like, we fired talented people because they were jerks. No one is worth it for being a jerk. And so that was really how we focused on it more. And we gave everybody a platform and we showed everyone the opportunity. This is a meritocracy. The folks that are walking the walk and talking the talk are the ones that are going to move ahead, not the ones who are controlling the narrative and saying all the right things. But we like the folks that were in the background, working with their peers, getting it done, not like talking a lot. Not all talk. You got to walk the walk.
I hear you. So you've had a couple of really successful exits behind you, and a lot of people kind of aspire to get to just a one, and you've kind of done it a couple of times now. When you think about the leadership team and the qualities of that leadership team that you're looking for to be part of, maybe you can share with the community, what do you see as kind of essential for the leadership qualities when you're leading this fast-growing companies?
Yeah, you need to be, in my opinion, you need to be empathetic. You need to be smart. You need to be curious. And you have to have people with low ego, low insecurity. Like, those 2 things kill you. Warren Buffett has a quote, says he hires for energy, intelligence, and integrity. You got to have all 3. If you have the first 2 without the third, you're a big problem. So I think from my standpoint, it's also looking at what does winning mean to you? Because I think there's some folks that want to be in leadership just because they think it's the next thing. But man, they love winning deals. They love it. And for me, like I always say, in leadership, when things are going well, credit goes to your team. When things are going bad, accountability goes to you. You better be ready for that. So all the good stuff you deflect to your team and they get all the credit, all the bad stuff you own because you're responsible for it. And I think you need to have people that are ready to sign up for that, that they don't care about that. They care about what it feels like to win to them. not the recognition you get for winning. And I think that's like a big difference.
It reminds me of the leaders eat last comment. So I think that makes a lot of sense. So how do you maintain this focus on kind of long-term strategic goals while also managing the day-to-day challenges of rapid growth? So can you do both at the same time, or do you kind of find yourself focusing more on one rather than the other?
Yeah, I think the long term drives the short term. Usually it's what are we optimizing for and what are we looking ahead to? And how does that manifest itself? When I started, I thought we were overselling companies and they were struggling to be successful out of the gate. And we were a little too loose on who we sold to in the sense of, the whole startup of like, hey, what do you guys do? It's like, what do you want us to do? And so the CRO bullet points on my resume for my first quarter was successfully reduce the amount of companies we sold to and sold to them smaller deals. So bless our founder and CEO for sort of trusting me that was the right path. But if you're a short-term focus, that looked like a terrible idea. But long-term focus, like I didn't want to optimize for average deal size. I wanted to optimize for lifetime value. And it's like, how do we get customers that are going to grow with us and that are going to work with us and that we're going to build long-term relationships with? And it was a leap of faith because that sort of NRR optimization, you don't see the benefits of it 1 quarter, 2 quarters in. Like it takes a while. And so really that's an example of like, hey, what do we want to build to? What do we want to optimize for? And then how does that manifest itself in the short term? What are the things we should really focus on? Because if you're worried about churn and worried about NRR, but then all you do is pound deals in and shower everyone with love for any deal that comes in, like you ain't fixing it. So it's like, you got to have everybody bought into this vision that, hey, this is how you're going to make more money. This is how we structured the comp plan to help you make more money. Here's how the company is going to be healthier to create more opportunity for you. And here's the path we're going to go on. And, there's going to be bumps along the way. You're going to have to iterate. But I think really you have to look at what are you building towards and then figure out how do we build our entire commercial structure to optimize towards the things that we value most.
So are you taking time out to do the strategy and the thinking and then getting back into the weeds kind of 2 months out of 3? Or is it kind of more iterative than that?
Yeah, it's more iterative. But I think for me right now, we're approaching our growth from a headcount standpoint a lot different. When I left Site Improve, I had 108 people on my team, probably had 45 sales folks. Right now at Influ2, I have 4. We're building efficiency. So for me, it's like change management isn't as tough because I have these 4 sort of all-stars that get it. And when we're going to change something, it doesn't take me a long time to go to my head of partnerships, go to my head of customer success and sit down with the 4 AEs and really walk through what this has done. The beauty is it was tougher at first, but as you've done some things and it's played out in a way that's beneficial for everyone, you build that sort of trust within that it's like, hey, this sounds weird, but let's do it. And so really for me right now, we have this smaller, efficient team, and it becomes a lot easier to sort of focus on change management. And it also comes out, it's easier to sort of farm those ideas from everyone because everyone's right there on the front line.
Makes a lot of sense. So talk us through the tech stack that you've brought with you or that you've brought into the business at the moment. And what emerging trends are you seeing around B2B technology sales? Are you finding different tools are being used, or are you using the same stack that you've been using for the last decade?
It feels like a lot's changed and not a lot has changed. Everybody's talking about all the changes, but we at Site Improve were one of Gong's first 20 customers. I wish I would have invested in them at that point rather than bought them. I'd be in a different place. But so I'm a big fan of Gong. I've been with them for a while. Use Clary for forecasting. I've used both Outreach and SalesLoft. We have Outreach right now, Salesforce. And it sounds cheesy, but right now our pipeline motion is anchored around our own product internally, which makes it a lot easier to sell. And really, like when I was buying Clary for the first time, their CRO at the time, Kevin Canerium, he just walked me through a demo of like how he uses it day to day internally at Clary. And it was powerful. And really for us, we're generating all of our pipeline through our own product. And so for us, it's easy when you drink your own champagne just to walk through like, hey, with one of your peers, like, here's how we're doing it. And it's working.
Yep. Well, we compete with Clary. We also compete directly with Gong, or have done in the past. What we're doing more and more these days is just plugging into Gong recordings because there's so much data there. And it's just like the mailboxes and the calendars. There's just so much opportunity to do the historical analysis on the old call recordings as well. So we found a really nice way of going into businesses already using Gong and just working with them rather than kind of replacing them. And actually, with Clary as well, Clary started introducing us to customers where they can't service them because Clary doesn't offer a service, for example, for HubSpot CRM customers, but we do. So the kind of smaller end of the market is probably where we see ourselves kind of not necessarily competing with them, but certainly offering a similar service. So I buy into the stack that you've got and obviously agree with the direction of travel. But I think we're seeing sales finally adopt a much more data-driven approach to business. And that consistency you can bring in when you are a lot more data-driven means that you can scale a whole lot faster.
Yeah, it's interesting to see all of the ways that sort of AI is being used right now too. Everybody's figuring it out. I think I'm a big believer that for the short term anyway, the best way to leverage AI is to support your humans, not to replace them. I just haven't seen the replacing it. And I think some people are really leveraging AI to try to do, it's almost like build a wider spam cannon. Like, how do we create more reach with fewer people? I would see AI in the future become like helping connect companies better, like building out, like it's always been a struggle for companies to really build out, what is my ICP? What is my account profile? And it's always vendors building that out, not customers. And like, it would be cool as Influ2 to leverage AI and see like, hey, what products are companies like us being really successful with? Like, what's a perfect fit for us? And I see it being a connector in the future that way, rather than sort of being an annoying ChatGPT function that everybody writes emails with.
I absolutely agree. I mean, when we introduced AI onto the kind of call intelligence piece of what we do, we went back and analyzed 1.2 million hours of sales calls last year. And what was fascinating is we were able to show customers, look, these deals that closed late stage as lost, it turns out that actually they were just never qualified correctly in the early stage. And we can tell because you moved out of that discovery phase off the back of this call, and we've done the analysis, and we can see that you only scored 25% on your medic capture because we threw the call AI at it, and it told us that you didn't qualify them well enough. So when you can do that for not just what, it's in the old world of, we'll watch the whole call recording, isn't that great? And now we can start to throw AI at it and do a whole host of analysis, not just on an individual call, but on all of the calls and email activity that took place during the whole customer's journey, and times that by the last 1,000 customer journeys. And all of a sudden you start to see patterns of kind of what good looks like. And we can use that to prompt the B and C players as to what they should be doing every stage of the sales cycle. So it's incredible what the AI can do. And I absolutely agree. This isn't about replacing people. It's about empowering people and taking away, for how many decades of salespeople being responsible for logging their own activities in the CRM and progressing things manually. AI can do all of that 10 times better than salespeople can. What AI can't do is build relationships with our target personas in a way that's really genuine. And I think what we need to be doing is using that limited capacity for learning that salespeople have to teach them how to deal with objections and how to build those relationships, because that's not using that limited capacity for learning to teach them how to do things that AI can do better than they can.
Yeah, there's all the data on folks want to buy without working with people. Like, I don't buy it. Those folks are out there, I'm sure. But for the most part, people want to work with people as long as it's authentic relationship. They don't want to be sold at. They don't want to be haggled with. But if a person can provide them value, they enjoy those interactions.
Absolutely. And more often than not, the buyers want help. They want to understand, if you're buying up, a bit of HR tech, I'm not an expert at HR tech, but I know I need to buy something. And if I'm talking to a seller that's just showing me the buttons, it doesn't have any value. But if I'm working with someone who's actually going to show me how I'm going to get the ROI on this and what are the gotchas I need to be aware of, I'm obviously going to take the next call because they've added value to my life. So it's about being an expert advisor. And I think there's a big opportunity for us as leaders to help our sales teams to be perceived as that expert advisor and to help with objection handling rather than show them how the buttons work and be really good at your admin.
Yeah.
So there we go. Well, look, as we're wrapping up, perhaps a couple of kind of closing questions here. So thinking about, is there one specific piece of advice you might offer to maybe yourself if you were coming up at this time, these kind of emerging B2B technology space leaders that are coming in and they aspire to scale revenue and build high-performing teams as you have? So is there any particular piece of advice you might want to hand down to the next generation?
I think embrace adversity, because those are the times where you learn the most and you grow the most. I think I've been fortunate with the companies I've had the opportunity to work with. There's an element to luck to this. When you look at people that have had successful exits, there's an element to the old AE saying of timing, territory, and talent in that order. It's not that different for us in leadership when you land with good companies that have good people and you hire good people and you're able to keep them. But ultimately, at some point, you're going to get punched in the mouth. And it's like, how do you respond and how do you get better? Or do you spiral and not know how to handle it? I think just understand that it's not all going to flow smoothly. It's going to be hard. It should be hard. And like when it's hard, those are the opportunities to learn the most. I think that's one of the biggest things. And then the other piece is just like, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. The saying that the two hardest words in the English language to say are Worcestershire sauce and I need help. Like, I don't know and I need help. That's like you need to be vulnerable enough to go to your leaders, to go to your team and just be like, I don't know. Well, I think we need to bring in help. And if that's a consultant to help in an area where you're weak, like if you're a marketing leader and you're really good at brand, not as good at demand gen, bring in a consultant to help you with demand gen. Like your job is to win. If you win, no one cares how you got there. No one thinks like, oh, they had to bring in a consultant because they didn't know how to do it themselves. Understand your weaknesses and understand how to support those weaknesses and get better at them. Then your job is to win.
I love that. Yeah, I think what makes us who we are isn't the good times. It's the challenges that we have to address and tackle. And if you think about all the learns and the times in our lives where we develop the most, it's when we're dealing with adversity. So I absolutely buy into all of that.
Your team notices too. Your team learns a lot about you when things are at their worst, not when they're at their best. And people understand what your relationship is with them when you don't need anything from them anymore. Like, how do you treat someone after they quit? How do you treat someone when they're not a part of your team anymore? Like, does it change? Think about those things because hear what people say, trust what they do. That's your brand, is how you treat people when you don't get anything from them, when they're not a part of your team.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense. So as you think about the year ahead with Influ 2, are there any specific goals or initiatives that you're focusing on for next year? And what's your strategy to kind of go out and achieve those?
Yeah, I think for us, we have a new product that's more focused on supporting sales development teams. It's really layering ads into a sequence, just like a picture of the SDR's face with a message sequence aligned within the sequence. We have that going. We have some enhancements to our Influ 2 product. But outside of that, we're really aligned with where the market is headed. So I'm excited just to work as companies move to like this more specific motion, a more aligned sales and marketing motion. I'm excited to really help drive the market in that direction.
Very good. And Joe, I noticed that we're both Pavilion members. How long have you been part of the community and what is it that you like the most about Pavilion?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly how long. I know that I was with the community when it was Revenue Collective. So I think that was like 2016. So it's been when dinosaurs roamed the earth. Yeah. I think for me, I said that I stole the collaborative meritocracy thing from Brad Cleveland. Like there's not a ton of new ideas. Like we're all sharing ideas and iterating. And I think the more smart brains you can pull from, the better. And so for me, it's relationships matter in this business and just like going to conferences, going places and meeting people that you've met a number of times before, because ultimately, like when you need an introduction, when you need a referral, when you need those things, like it's so helpful to have this network. And it feels good on the flip side to be able to help other people when they need them. And I hired my head of partnerships off of a Pavilion referral. I hired my head of customer success off of a Pavilion referral. And the community as a whole is great to be a part of. Hop in Slack if you're looking for advice on this, advice on that. It's just a lot of smart people out there. To be able to plug into those folks is very powerful.
No, I agree. Have you done the CRO school they put out there? It's very good. And there's a new one, a GTM school, which is also fantastic.
I have not done the GTM school. I did the first CRO school, and then I did the revenue architecture class through Winning by Design, which was amazing as well. Yeah, those schools are great. The courses and content are amazing, but the peer groups are great. I still talk to the folks that were in my peer group from CRO school, and that was 6 years ago or something, 5 years ago. So just the relationships you build through that is highly recommended.
Are you going to the GTM event in Austin?
Yes, I think I have a breakout session there. I probably should know that. I think I do. So look for that.
Me too. So I'll see you there. That's great. You get to meet in person. So that'll be fun.
Great. Yes, look forward to it.
Well, listen, Joe, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. I'm sure the community will really enjoy them. And thank you so much for your time. And if people want to get in touch with you directly, how do they go about doing that?
LinkedIn is probably best. Just ping me on LinkedIn. I'm responsive there. We're happy to chat. Or through Pavilion members on Pavilion Slack, you can DM me there as well.
Very good. Well, Joe, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you sharing your wisdom and look forward to meeting you in person in Austin.
Likewise, Guy. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Revenue Insights. If you want to learn more, subscribe to our newsletter and we'll deliver every episode straight to your inbox. If you have any questions, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. Our links will be in the episode notes. See you next week.